Awesome drumming, cool VFX, exciting streams, and a bullet time camera system. MrGregles' stream is seriously impressive. He does a lot of really cool stuff over on Twitch, and I have followed him for quite a while and just been impressed at the sheer amount of tech and setup involved in what otherwise could be a fairly simple stream setup. And so I had the lovely pleasure of sitting down with him today and having a talk about what goes into building such a stream setup, the evolution from how he got started on Twitch, which was actually doing game streaming, to this crazy awesome setup where he's getting sponsorships to have like 7 Camlink Pros running at once and audio running in all different directions and 5 PCs running at once. I wanted to dive into the nitty-gritty, and so we got to talk a lot about his stream setup, his new studio, where he's come from, and all of those things, and I'm excited to share it with you, so let's get into it.
Legitimately, if the walls were lead-lined and a nuke went off, I would probably be safe, but I would walk outside and be like, oh, well, this is my life now. Okay, then.
You play the drums on a website that most people probably haven't heard of called TwitchTV.
Yeah, it's quite underknown.
Yeah.
I think it's up and coming, though.
It might gain some traction. I don't know. It's got some competition with Justin, though, so we'll see.
I think they're going the right way with DMCA.
I couldn't even keep a straight face for that. Dear God. Yeah, I guess that's especially problematic for you.
Yeah, it's an interesting one to negotiate. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I play drums on Twitch, and people watch me, and I never thought it would ever work. I started it as I'd been game streaming for about a month with my friend.
Right.
And I'm awful at game streaming. I as much as I'm like I can't multitask, considering I can drum and chat and change cameras and things, I can't play a game and chat to people properly to be entertaining. And after about a month, he was like, dude, you're obviously not having fun. I was like, no, I think I'm going to quit. And he went, well, you drum. Why don't you jump on the drumming and perform to people? And my reply was, no one's going to watch that. And then he showed me the 8-bit drummer, Jared, who had been doing it for years and very successfully. I was like, you know what? Okay, I'll try this. And best thing I ever chose to do in my life ever. It's so fun and much better than what I'd previously been doing, which was gigging, because when you're sat on a drum kit in front of a large group of people or an audience, etc., it's as much as you're there and there's the energy, it's nothing like Twitch, because I can't talk to those people. You know, the front man might go, how are you feeling tonight? Stuff like that.
Right.
That's all you get is like some cheers or the occasional heckler. Yeah. But with Twitch, obviously, I get to talk to people, so it just made the drumming more interactive and interesting to me, because I could actually talk about what I liked about the music I was playing instead of just playing it, or even just playing what, say, like a band wanted to do if I was filling in for their drummer, etc.
Right.
So, yeah, I love it. It's amazing. And then I was intrigued by the fact I could actually start bringing in my professional life and skills from visual effects into it. And, well, yeah, my channel just went from there, I guess.
So when you first started out, how long did it take for you to start implementing some of those crazier VFX ideas and other, the side project? Because I know a lot of people will start out streaming, because I'm pretty sure there's a stream format for every niche of streaming where you could enhance it with some of the crazy things you do, but most people think you have to like stay completely on task, and like if it's not directly relevant to cooking or drumming or whatever, then it's not worth it. How long were you just like a camera pointed at your drum kit before you wanted to evolve it?
About a month and a half. I genuinely, so I started out with the Logitech C270.
Yep.
Yeah, 720p, 30 FPS, if you were lucky. And
I'm holding it up in front of the camera right now.
Yep.
I happen to have one sitting right here.
Amazing if you want to give one to your mum for video calling and Zoom, but after that, useless. But I had that, and I had it hooked up on a lighting sort of drum stand that I had, duct taped to it, and then I had mono audio, because I literally had a mixer where the second input channel was broken. So after about a month and a half of that, I was like, right, I want to upgrade. You know, obviously audio I went for first.
Right.
I invested in a better sound card and went for better connections so I could get that full stereo crisp audio. So that was good. And then I started looking through Twitch and seeing what other people were doing, and there weren't really at that time, especially in the music section of Twitch, there wasn't really anyone with a multicam setup. There was one guy, Scene of Action, who he had a full production studio.
Right.
But again, that was it. There was really no one else. And coming from the visual effects background, and I've worked in live TV and I've worked in film, I was like, well, I want to show people what I'm actually doing more on the drums, because that was the subject matter. So I invested in a C920. I mean,
right.
It's like every streamer's rite of passage at this point.
Right. Yep.
Everyone has one in a cupboard somewhere. And so I got a C920 and the C270, and I was using XSplit at the time. I got them both working, and they started having those sync issues and breaking, at which point I then, discussing it on stream, and one of my viewers at the time was like, oh, I'll buy you a camera. Have you got anything in mind? I was like, oh, I'm looking at the Brios.
Mm-hmm.
And he was from Germany, and he couldn't get hold of any Brios for some reason. He was like, look, right, I'll send you the money to buy two. If you buy one for me, one
right.
for you, and you just post me the other one at your expense, basically. I was like, yes, done.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Of course.
It started taking off from there, because the first thing that I really encountered was, how do I lay out multiple cameras that's in an interesting way, not just a grid?
Right.
And that's where my overlay started to evolve. And then I switched over onto OBS. It started to open up what I could do with comparisons from what was standard in the film industry to what was new on Twitch. Because there's so much that has been used professionally for years in the visual effects and film and TV industries, that when you bring it to Twitch, people are like, oh my god, this is
right.
whoa! And suddenly it's all new again. So I started going through everything that I knew how to do, and I was working out, right, is that possible, is that not? And that's still the list of things I actually made back then. I celebrated my 4th year on Twitch drumming on May the 2nd.
Oh,
so
nice.
Yeah, it was kind of scary. Time flies. But I still have the list of things I wanted to achieve from I made that about 4 months into streaming, that list. I still have that. I'm still trying to complete it and go through it. And it's actually one of the reasons I built this studio, is to try and achieve some of those points.
Right.
And I think really live streaming at the moment is catching up because of the live element. Obviously, post-production is always going to win.
Right.
But I enjoy taking that post-production, post-edited film and TV feel and bringing it into live streaming to see if I can make it feel the same as if you were watching something that was pre-recorded. And I think once finally it's caught up to that, then and we can start breaking new ground, there things will get really exciting. Yeah, a month and a half, and then I was like, right, let's go.
Right. That sounds about right. And that's, as a bit of a side note, that's what kind of bugs me about some of the like hashtag grind culture or whatever with streaming, is this idea that you're supposed to do the same thing for years on end with no evolution and just hope success falls in your lap, when in reality, like, if you want success, if you want to celebrate your anniversary multiple years later and have, these things going well for you, you always need to be challenging yourself. If you're sitting there with your game and your camera and you're like, why isn't this working? Maybe it's because you're not tweaking it enough and upgrading it. And it doesn't always have to be monetary investments. Like, I mean, obviously there's some gear involved, but you literally looked at it from the sense of, what are the strategies we implemented in X, Y, or Z field, and how can I bring that back here? Even if you're doing it, I mean, you were doing it with cheap webcams at first. Like, you were just doing it with what you had to start with to see if it worked.
I started with a key group of friends who were streaming on Twitch.
Right.
Now none of them stream on Twitch. And their reason for it, I love them to bits, but their reason for not continuing was because they weren't growing. And bar, say, investing in a new overlay or changing up their game, they really did nothing else. And my one of those friends has come back to Twitch now, and he came to me a couple of weeks ago and he's like, right, Greg, help me with this. And I was like, right, make a list of all the stuff that you want to achieve in a sense of goals and numbers, have them as motivators, and then list the things that you want to do with your content. He was like, well, I want to do this and play this game. I was like, okay, but you did that before.
Right.
Do you really want to do that? And his answer was, well, other people are playing it. And I was like, then hold up.
Right.
What do you want to do? And it's like with me, you know, I started with the drumming because drumming has always been my passion. And then I brought in the visual effects and the tech element because that just excites me.
Right.
And the reason I made that list of things to try wasn't because I thought this is going to grab someone's attention and I'm going to get famous. It was more the point of whether someone watches it or not, I'm going to enjoy experimenting with it. And that, you know, my viewers have said, when I launch into talking about something tech-wise, they don't stay because they know much about the tech.
Right.
They stay because they enjoy my passion about it. Even if you're doing, say, something a lot of other people are, you might have that small thing that just is your quirk that really brings you out. Like you say, sitting there and waiting for a big raid, or just by chance someone stumbling over your content and that launching you.
Right.
Grinding for luck. There's no point, you know. And that's why I think so many people get bored and stop.
I think a lot of the motivation, like, is in the wrong place. The way you described how your friend was approaching it is how so many streamers approach it, in that, well, I just want to play this game. Cool, play the game. What's streaming have to do with it? And the same thing with your stream. Like, it starts from a place, and everyone starts from this place, and that's fine. Of like, okay, well, I'm gonna stream me playing the drums. But if your ultimate, like, if you were happy with the ultimate goal and objective of your stream just being, well, I'm just gonna play drums, then it wouldn't have really gone very far. And ultimately, you know, you would get viewers who were like, well, this dude's playing the drums, that's pretty good, he's pretty good, and whatever. But you would hit a wall of, okay, well, I'm done watching drums for now. Like you can only sit there and watch it for so long. Like, the same thing with the live audience. Like, eventually, if you just sat in a pub for like hours and days just drumming your life away, like, eventually people are gonna stop paying attention because
it's gonna get boring.
You got to build a show out of it. You got to entertain. You got to do something more fun. And now you teach. You showcase the cool tech. You do lots of crazy stuff that blows my mind sometimes.
When I started, there wasn't an affiliate program.
Mm-hmm.
And that, for me, was probably a blessing in disguise, because there was no, aside from people donating to you directly, there was no way to monetize Twitch aside from being a partner. And you had to apply for it, and there wasn't a goal to hit. You got really assessed per person. And I think something has been lost in a way with the affiliate program. It's phenomenal, don't get me wrong, and I think it does more positive than bad, but you do see a lot of people coming onto the platform with the intention of, how can I grind to affiliate? How can I then grind to partner, with the sole intention of making money? And okay, might in a way sound hypocritical, because this is my full-time job and I make my living off people subbing to me. But as I reiterate constantly, if I never got another sub or donation ever again, I'd still stream.
Right. You may not be doing it as your full-time job, but you'd still be doing it.
Yeah, I'd have to go back into visual effects or tech, etc. But my passion is this. It's my hobby, and I'm just very lucky to have it as my job. Whereas when people grind for that sole intention of making money, then that, unless you have success in it, which very few people do when they are just money orientated, the love of it dies so fast. Or, well, not even love at that point. The motivation behind it dies so fast. Because they're not making money. And yeah, my biggest thing whenever anyone asks about starting streaming, I'm like, just, you know, it's the cliche answer, do what you enjoy. But it really comes from quite a base level of, as long as you're enjoying it, people will enjoy watching it. And that's the key thing that you don't, it sounds, again, really, really cliche, but you don't understand until you've been doing something for so long that you start to realize that you might be boring yourself.
Right.
So like with the drumming, for ages I was just a jukebox. I would just play what people wanted and nothing else. And it got to the point where I was like, I've played Africa by Toto so many times,
right,
that I have it, like, I have that banned in my of course I can't play it anymore because DMCA, and I wouldn't dream of doing that. But
never.
But you know, never. What?
I never played it on air ever. It was just private plays.
It was a DMCA free jingle version, of course.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, it's I went at that point. I was like, I want to change this up. I'm finding this boring. So I started talking about the tech more, or I started playing full albums of music that I wanted, and that allowed me to progress in my enjoyment, which again re-sparked that interest from people. And then obviously I came up with the bullet time idea, and everyone freaked out. And I thought it was just a gimmick, and now it's the biggest attraction to my stream.
Yeah. I always hate the like money versus fun discussion, because I've always been someone, I was in that generation of YouTubers that saw the partner program come to fruition and was like, that's my business model, and I have always been business oriented, but I live and breathe this stuff. It's still like, there's never any less fun just because I enjoy making money from it and sustaining it.
It can motivate you to push to greater heights.
Right.
You know, and that's a good thing. Like, if you're making money from it and you're like, right, I've got a passion, I've got an income, I can just spend my time doing this.
Right.
Like,
that's the perfect blend.
Happy days.
But when you're literally just, I want to become affiliate, why? So I can be successful. But affiliate program doesn't change your success. It's just a checkbox that you get by proving you're not a bot. No, I gotta be affiliate. Like,
partner as a check mark is a good, you get in there. Well done. But it's not a, you've won, you've peaked.
It doesn't make your career sustainable or any less stressful. Like,
no, the amount of people I've seen have gotten the check mark and then literally the next day said, I've quit my job. And they maybe have 200, 300 subs. And I'm like, unless you have the cheapest rent and bills in the world, where's that thought process coming from? Yeah, I think the partner and affiliate programs are fantastic, but also can be dangerous if someone with the wrong mentality comes at it. You know.
So we have teased quite a bit about your setup and everything. Let's talk about this drum setup, because, oh my gosh, if for people who haven't seen it, and I would have already shown clips of it in the video anyway, I still look at some of the shots sometimes and try to just like diagram it out in my head, and it just gives me a headache sometimes, because I know the second something comes loose, you're just like scrambling around trying to figure it out. But also, there's so much genius, even in just the little things, like the wire hooks on the wall in your production room here, that I feel like you could take a case study of like every angle of your setup and just be like, wow, I didn't think of doing that there. Wow, I didn't think about putting that there. And whew.
It all came from starting with just nothing, and then. So, I started in a single bedroom flat, where I had my bedroom and my living room. Right. And my drum kit was living room / kitchen / relaxation area.
The big open room that does everything.
Yeah, exactly. And I had my drum kit, and I had a black tarpaulin background that I'd put up to hide all the mess, essentially. Right. And that was my stream setup with multicams and everything. And the problem with that was every time I started streaming, I'd have to take it down. Or I'd have to put it up and then take it down, so I could live in the space. So when I'd been going about a year, I went, right, Twitch is actually going somewhere. I'm getting fed up with this flat, because it was actually costing me a lot of money just for that tiny house. Yeah. Flat. I found a house which was £20 more for a house, a 3-bedroom house. You know, £20 more in rent. I was like, no brainer. Yeah. Signed up. Got the house, and was able to have a whole room just dedicated to streaming, so I didn't have to put everything up and down. Then I did the whole foaming of the walls and started adding more cameras. Yet again, they were USB. Added a second PC, came up with the bullet time idea and expanded it more, and it got to the point again there where the limitations were because I couldn't physically change my surroundings.
Right.
You know, I'm in a rental house. I couldn't drill cable hangers into the wall. I couldn't attach things to the ceiling like cameras, etc. So this studio is based upon necessity.
Right.
Where when I went full time, I listed I like lists, if you haven't guessed already. I listed all of the problems that I had, all of the things I wanted to achieve, but all of the problems I had, such as cable mess.
Right.
No matter how much I tried to organize it all of the HDMI cables, all of the Ethernet cables, everything was just a constant in the way and made the space very hard to work in and feel good about. Coming into, you know, buying a house, I bought this house because it had the garden space to build this studio.
Right.
I won't lie. Like, I moved house and bought a house just because of Twitch. You know, and woohoo, that's the dream.
Hashtag goals.
But I'd always, yeah, I'd always wanted a recording studio for my drums anyway, so I saw the chance to two birds, one stone, and did it. But in the studio, and I'll send you diagrams to throw up on the video if you'd like, but there are two rooms. We have this control room, and we have my main live room, and it is a soundproof box in my garden. The walls are about 1.5 feet thick, with multiple layers to stop just any sound transmission, meaning I can stream whenever I want. But also, there's a lot of cavity space for running wires. So I have, on each wall, in here and in the live room, I have on each wall 4 HDMI ports and 2 Cat7 Ethernet ports, just around the skirting board. So if I want to move anything or plug anything in, I can do it. I then have a massive patch panel for my network, which is actually sat right in front of me. And then I've also got a HDMI and Ethernet patch panel behind my server rack. So I could just route everything. And like you say, there's loads of little things which occasionally pop out of place and stuff. But I designed the whole studio to facilitate and take away all of those problems and needs that I'd needed for ages.
Right.
And so far, it's working out pretty well. I'm sure I'll come up with an idea that
always
it doesn't facilitate.
Always.
Hey ho.
And that's my lovely backing point to the whole gear doesn't matter argument is gear matters a lot, but not for these arbitrary, like, quality upgrades that people try to devalue. It's workflow. Workflow is everything.
Oh, God, yeah. just like, the cable rack is the perfect example.
Yeah.
If a cable breaks, it's there. It's just, I'm not interrupted.
Right.
I've not got to go in my loft or in a storage room and find stuff. It's click in and out, carry on with the stream, or carry on recording, or whatever I'm doing at the time. There's definitely a massive amount to be said for custom workspace.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what this whole thing is just, I designed it from the ground up to fulfill the purposes that I need.
Greg and I got talking for a very long time. In fact, the total runtime of our recorded conversation was about 1 hour and 40 minutes long, which was obviously way too long to post here on YouTube. So I have the full edited conversation in basically a big video podcast form with still all the B-roll and things like that available over on my own streaming site where I don't have to worry about audience retention or algorithm or how long my video runs. I can just put up all the content that I think you all might want to see that maybe not everybody wants to see and it would hurt my video. The site is called Nebula, and I've built it with some of my creator friends, including YouTube's top education creators such as Legal, Thomas Frank, and LowSpec Gamer. CuriosityStream saw what we were doing over on Nebula and wanted to partner up and support our educational content with their own library of thousands of educational and documentary content over on their website. We worked out a deal where if you sign up for CuriosityStream at the link below, you get access to them and all of their educational and documentary content, but also Nebula for free for the entire duration of your subscription to CuriosityStream, which is pretty bonkers. You get access to both sites. Even better, they're currently running a promotion offering 26% off of their annual plan, making it less than $15 a year to support me, my content, and all the top education creators over on Nebula and really support our channels, but also get access to all the CuriosityStream content as well, which is pretty awesome. And while you're there, I recommend checking out, I think it's kind of appropriate for me talking about having to cut down this talk with MrGregles here. Faster, Humanity's Quest to Save Time, which has episodes about things like the elevators or the highway, shopping malls, things that you don't always think about, but humanity has kind of invented or created in order to save time, but often doesn't actually save us any time. Something to think about there. Head on over to curiositystream.com/epos for the best deal in streaming and to get access to both sites for under $15 per year. It is insane. Just do it, and you can see the full uncut combo with me and MrGregles up there as well. So you stream video and audio to Twitch, which most people have an image of what that workflow traditionally looks like in their head. But with you, it's obviously a little bit different. I have counted so far at least 4 computers running your setup, and I think that might be a little low. Although with some of your kind of computer upgrades, that may not be necessary. But so we've got your drum setup kind of in the center of the visible space here, but then there's you can tell with all the monitors and screens that there's definitely, you know, at least hidden workstations at different points. What does that look like in terms of computer layout and purposes for them?
Yeah, so in this room we have this side we have a 20U rack which holds 4 4U cases. We have the main PC I'm running on, talking to you right now on, which is a 64-core Threadripper. That's got a 2080 Ti in it, 64 gigs of RAM, and multiple M.2 drives. It's all water-cooled. AlphaCool do some fantastic server rack radiators and pumps. So I threw those in there. We then have another PC which powers dedicated just to powering the monitors that sit behind me while I'm drumming. Right. So that's a 3950X with a 2080 Ti, a 32 gig of RAM, and again M.2s. That has within it all my PCs, just so you know, have 10 gigabit SFP plus NICs because I have a 10 gigabit network. And then I have a Camlink Pro in that background PC, so I can throw outputs from the main system, the Threadripper, into that, so I can or the bullet time PC, which I'll go over in a second, onto those background screens. It's routed so anything can be displayed on those background screens, including visual animations, logos for sponsors, you name it. And then we have the bullet time system, which is probably the most expensive. It's running a 32-core Threadripper Pro, 32 gig of RAM, a 2080 Ti again, and a single M.2. No 10 gigabit NIC though, because the board that it's running on, which is the WDS whatever Sage, right, Asus boards has an onboard 10 gigabit NIC. That runs 5 Camlink Pros to run the 20 HDMI cameras that run the bullet time. 20
cameras for one effect. And this is a dedicated computer basically to run that camera stream. Yep, pretty much. It's a nice system. I have to say that motherboard is probably the most flexible on the market. Then again, it's also got the highest price point. So Elgato, thank you for providing that. They were very kind. And then finally on the, shall we say, functional PCs, I have an audio system which is dedicated to just running Ableton Live, my Dante audio network, and my 2 audio interfaces. That's an i9-7980XE with 3 1080 Ti's, a 10 gigabit, 3 1080 Ti's, a 10 gigabit NIC, and a Thunderbolt 3 card. And this is just for audio? Yes. What do the graphics cards play? How do they play into that? First of all, that PC used to be my main system, and I used that for a lot of graphics and visual effects work. So the 1080 Ti's were bought back then out of necessity for running one screen per graphics card. So I just had the raw power for, if I was running Maya on the main screen, it wasn't taking from what I was running on, say, a secondary screen. Right. So that's why I have those, and I'd water-cooled the whole system to look quite nice, and I didn't want to pull them out. That makes sense. Okay.
However, it does come in to be stated that it was actually a blessing that I did that, because in Ableton Live, when you run a lot of VSTs and plugins, they all now have ridiculously over-the-top graphical interfaces. And believe it or not, they really tax your graphics cards. Yeah, if you're running sort of like 20, 30 plugins in Ableton, your GPU, a single GPU could be at about 80% usage. It's kind of ridiculous.
Wow, okay. I did not know this.
And then the final use for them is I like ultra wides or super wides. I own 3 of the 49-inch super wides. And as you can imagine, for timelines in Premiere, Ableton, anything that requires a timeline, they're phenomenal. You obviously yourself will know. So I have in the control room, all of the monitors in here are mirrored to identical monitors in the control room. So I have an super wide, in here for Ableton and everything I run.
Right.
But then that is mirrored into a second super wide in the in the live room. So I have the graphics cards to be able to run those,
right?
All of those screens, because it runs those two plus various other outputs, 4K TV, which I monitor my chat out off, etc. So they do actually get used. I get that question a lot on stream of, why do you have 320 1080 Ti's? It seems overkill.
You don't think about it in terms of audio, but I had no idea about the user interfaces for that. That's wild.
Some of them are ridiculous, especially when you're looking at parametric EQs. Obviously, you've got waveforms being displayed, and because everyone makes it look fancy, you've got all these graphical EQs constantly moving rapidly, obviously in real time. It's not exactly, and it all adds up.
Interesting.
And then finally, I have my storage server. Yeah. So I have my old 5960X. It's done me well as that CPU. That's running my storage server. So that has 8 4TB NAS drives. They're WD.
Right.
The WD Reds. 8 of those running in RAID 5. I then have the slightly crazier option of 16 M.2 form factor, but they're actually SATA drives, SSDs.
Right.
So I have 16 of those, and they run, they're again in RAID 5, but they run all of the assets, all the streaming PCs. And that's why I need the 10 gigabit network.
Right.
So when I'm actually live, all of the assets are being pulled from that storage server over the network. Nothing is... Well, I have backups, obviously, on the actual PCs, but everything's being pulled from that storage server. Right. And that is so if I need to change anything, either midstream or when I'm developing, I can just change it in one place, and it cascades over my whole setup. I am looking at adding a 6th PC or a second bullet time setup, but I have yet to build that. But that will have a 2nd gen Threadripper 24 core,
right,
32 gig of RAM, and a 3070. So yeah.
So you're the one hoarding all the graphics cards. There are 2 big questions that I have from this kinds of setup, both from an educating those watching at home perspective, but also from problem solving, trying to recreate kind of little aspects of this in my own setup. What does the signal chain look like in terms of getting all the video together to then broadcast up to Twitch? And how do you keep that in sync? Because most of us have a hard enough time keeping a 2 PC setup in sync. And here you are with audio being dedicated on one computer and routed 500 places, and I'm just looking at that and I'm like, and I know some of the answers, but I'm very curious because this is top tier plays right here.
There are 2 ways you can do it, and I've used both ways. However, I'll explain the previous way, which is more useful from an education point of view for people with two PC setups, which is, first, I have all of my cameras going into quad capture cards on the main system. The main 8 cameras, shall we say.
Right.
So they are all in sync because they are all locked to the clock of the PC they're on.
Right.
Now, to bring anything external in, say background screen inputs or the bullet time inputs. Now, the way I run the bullet time is the bullet time PC has its own instance of OBS, which all of those 20 cameras are going into from their Camlink Pros.
Right.
Then I use a full screen projector output, send that out the graphics card into the Camlink Pro of the main PC. So that's how I use physical HDMI connections. I have used NDI, however, the plugin for OBS currently just isn't stable enough. So using physical HDMI, because everything's in the rack,
right,
it just made sense. And then to sync those, this is where the two schools of thought comes in. You can either render delay all of the cameras on the main system and bring them backwards to be in sync with the bullet time being sent in, which obviously has the delay from one transmission and to the input into itself. Or you can lock your PCIe lanes, the inputs of those capture cards, to the clock of another PC. So what I do, and what actually works better, is I lock all of the Camlink Pros in the bullet time PC to the clock of my Threadripper in the main system via the network, and that keeps everything in sync. And that is more reliable for when you have multiple systems working all in tandem.
Especially for an audio, like a music-based stream where timing is kind of crucial.
Yeah, exactly. And that actually brings it into how I do the audio as well. So the audio system is running two very high-end audio interfaces. I've got one that physically sits next to me while I'm drumming. That's a Focusrite 8 Pre. And then that is linked to my main interface, which connects to the audio PC via Thunderbolt 3, which is a Focusrite 16 line.
Right.
They use Dante, which, in short, imagine NDI for audio. For anybody, I know you know about it. For anybody obviously listening, you can essentially send audio anywhere on your network to multiple sources, latency free, or with, and I mean the tiniest amount of latency. So all of my audio is sent to the audio PC via Dante and via these interfaces, processed, all of my EQs, blah blah blah, is applied, and then that is sent out over the network to my background screen PC, the bullet time PC, and the, obviously predominantly the main system that runs OBS. And again, the clocks for those are actually synced to the audio interfaces, so when I send it all into the main OBS setup, it will then take that audio and delay it and sync it with the virtual sound card I'm running on the Threadripper,
right,
and sync it to the clock of the Threadripper, which will inline all the video and audio. So that's the more complicated way of doing it. I've just found that more stable in general because, like I say, it's using the, I say physical, but the physical clock of that Threadripper. So I just don't have to think about it. If the Threadripper itself, if its clock goes out of sync for some reason, yes, it may mess up the whole setup, but at least everything will be in sync, out of sync, if that makes sense.
It's not like you're cascading, like the bullet time are out of sync with the main one and the audio's out of sync with everything, because that's what I imagine going wrong. Like, I'm just sitting here thinking, like, you're going to have, like, 4 different timelines running simultaneously, and then they'll... Okay.
Yeah. Whereas, obviously, the other thing I could do, and I used on previous setups, was I would just send the audio in, and then render...
sync everything to the audio stream.
Yeah, delay... Well, actually, no, I'd sync it to the video stream, because audio was always faster.
Oh, right.
I would always just delay the audio. OBS, Advanced Properties,
right,
Offset, or whatever it's called. And that's how I do that. But I found with Dante, because the latency is so like, low, just passing it through the network and then syncing it to the main clock is the easiest way to go.
Interesting. So... let's talk about the bullet time a little bit here. You have this crazy setup, which still, every time I look at it, and it's only gotten better with the recent upgrades, it's pretty crazy. I believe it can be triggered by chat commands as well as manually by yourself. And it literally, like, it sits there, and you might as well just have, like, a boomerang camera fling around you, Matrix style, as you're drumming, which is the weirdest and yet most awesome application of that I have ever seen.
I went away, I thought, right, how could I actually do this? What's the cheapest way? And immediately came to webcams.
Right.
But the problem with that was the fact I didn't have enough webcams to test it. So I didn't know if it was going to work.
Right.
I did a lot of research into... Obviously, I'd been running multiple webcams anyway. So I knew... I had about 8 at that point. I knew the problems with running multiple webcams. You know, having USB buses overloaded.
Right.
To try and plug more than 2 of the same camera, if, say, it's C922s, into the same controller, they end up breaking. Yeah. One will just cut out altogether. So I did my research, found that C922s had a much better multi-PC, multi-cam, driver than anything else that Logitech had put out. I basically did all the preliminary research. I can't speak. Preliminary research to get this to work, but I couldn't physically do it. And then I was very lucky. I actually had a raid. French streamer called MrMV was in a Minecraft tournament. He died, and he had 17,000 people watching him. So he decided to surf the music section, and he'd been told about my stream by his friend Dam Live, who I'd known for ages, and he just happened to open my stream with those 17,000 people watching and was like, oh, look at the multi-camera, look at the overlay, etc. Go and say hi. I received 10,000 follows in 10 minutes. I was streaming, and suddenly I start getting follows, you know, the stream elements alerts, and it's suddenly filling the chat. I'm like, oh god, we're being botted. And just in between, like, occasionally you could see people going, no, we're not bots, it's actually people. And then my viewer count went from about 100 to 10 grand, you know, 10,000 people. And I was there drumming, just like, okay, this is fine.
Smile, don't act nervous.
Help! You know, whilst I was doing that stream, unbeknownst to me, a guy from Logitech was watching. And then the next stream, I had about 5,000 people come back, which was probably the best raid retention I have ever had. He didn't even raid me, in fact. He just told people to come and watch. They stuck around themselves. But yeah, they all came back, and so did this guy from Logitech. And I joked on that stream about, I was like, look, I would love to do this, but I can't get hold of the cameras. I had no idea. I get this message pop up being like, hi, I work for Logitech.
Your dreams have been answered.
Well, he didn't work in sort of like a sponsor level or anything like that. He just was one of their, you know, logistics and tech people, like helped with everything. He went, look, I think your stream's really cool. I'm going to pass it on to some people if you don't mind. I was like, I don't mind. Got in touch with various people, got talking, showed them, you know, the ideas. All of my research was like, look, I can't test it until I get the cameras. So at this point, it's like, I can't give you a guarantee. Would you take a chance? Cue ABBA. But just
no, DMCA.
But it was quite weird. So they sent me 10 of the C922s. So I bought the final 2 to make 12, because I'd worked out for a 90-degree angle you needed 12 cameras. And I bought other little bits to take the PC, like the USB cards I needed to make the PC that I'm running work. And actually have all the inputs. I put it together, put it in OBS, added all the cameras. They didn't break. Great start. And used auto hotkey to essentially try and switch all the scenes. That didn't work, because scene transitions, even with cut, you'd get cameras unloading or lagging. So I scene nested each camera, and it's still the same setup to this day, by the way, even with 20. It's the only way I found to get it to work in OBS. But you give each camera, its own scene, and then you nest all of those camera scenes into one, and you layer them from the first camera to the last camera. And then with auto hotkey and hotkeys, I just turned off their visibility and then turned them back on. and boom,
Smart.
bullet time.
Yeah.
What I did was I then created more scenes and put all of the cameras in a grid. So one 1080p scene had 4 cameras in.
Right.
I then applied the slow-mo plugin to those 4 scenes, because obviously 12 divided by 4, and then had that run, and it just stayed within what the PC could handle. So every time I pressed the freeze frame option, where it would spin around me and hold me in place, true Matrix style, it would activate the slow-mo plugin, but I had said to the slow-mo plugin to elongate a second, essentially for as long as possible.
Right.
So it was actually just holding the first frame it captured for the whole duration of that spin. Or that rotation. And that was it. Like, there was the first iteration of the bullet time. And to me, it was a gimmick. You know, it started as a joke and a meme. And I was like, right, this is a gimmick. It might be great for Logitech. First sponsorship, woohoo.
Right.
But it's not going to be a long-lasting thing. Because it didn't look particularly great.
Right.
In my opinion, anyway. But people loved it. It got a lot of attention on Twitter and social media, etc. And Logitech came back to me and said, this is amazing. We really like this. Immediately I went, well, I want to push it to 180. You know, I really want to do that down the line. They said, well, sure. And then fast forward quite a bit, I'd achieved a sponsorship from other companies, Elgato, Asus, AMD.
Right.
And I'd gone to Asus and AMD and I said, look, I need a PC to run Bullet Time 2.0, this 180 system. And they believed in it.
Right.
I told them I don't know if OBS will cope with this. I don't know if I'll get that many cameras running, especially USB cameras. And they believed in it and what I could do, and it went from there. And I mean, I got the in this setup, the Bullet Time working with 22 webcams. I'd tried for 24. Problem was, the moment you got to 24, Windows started just going, no, thank you.
Right.
It did not like it. And I don't know whether that was because I had a relatively small amount of RAM in the system. When I say that, I mean physical sticks. I had 32 gigabytes, but in 2 sticks, and I couldn't afford more.
Right.
So for a second-gen Threadripper, which is what it was running, it wasn't giving the CPU the ability to actually work. But it just couldn't afford any more. So 22, that was it. We stuck to it. And then, to sort of like finish this very elongated story, Elgato came to me when they were looking at putting the Camlink Pro out before they released it, and they said, Greg, how much would it cost to upgrade that to HDMI? And I went, it's a lot of money. They were like, I was like, I'll need a new PC, I'll need new cameras, I'll need, you name it. They went, price it up. 10 grand later, and
Woo!
Yeah, we launched it. It took a month of work, and I have to say now I'm very happy with the result. It's, you know, it's not 22 cameras, it's 20.
Right.
But to my knowledge, no one else has it on Twitch, a Bullet Time setup. And definitely not to the same quality. And it's something, considering, like I say, it started out as a joke, it's something that has become a staple of my channel, not only in how good it looks,
right,
and like I say, you know, I think it does look good. I'm usually very critical of things, but I think we've gotten it to almost the head of, or the height that it will stop at without changing all the cameras to better cameras. This will be the peak. But yeah, it's been a fascinating project, really. And I've learned a lot, not just about building a Bullet Time, but streaming in general, how you can make a system running OBS as efficient as possible.
Right.
Especially for the freeze frame aspect. You know, the amount of RAM that the slow-mo plugin used was ridiculous. I now use the actual freeze plugin, which was created by Exceldra, which is amazing. You know, just applied to every scene. And again, Atom just triggers that. I run through the frozen frozen frames on the scenes, and
Right.
then it untriggers it and re-triggers it to go back. And that's bullet time. Make it sound simple, but it's been fascinating and really fun to do. The reason I'm gazing off in this direction, by the way, is because I'm looking at it.
Appreciating your work, marveling at good cameras.
Basically looking at it, be going, please don't break.
Yeah, that too.
Please don't break. Please, I can't speak.
Speaking's overrated. Well, I super appreciate you sitting down with me. I think there's a lot of lessons here for the viewers in terms of investing in yourself, optimizing your workflow, and really doubling down on what you do best and trying to scale that forward, and also not being afraid to just build the things that you want to see instead of putting it off until later. I'm going to continue to be watching your streams to pick up little workflow ideas and things like that, because it's really interesting to look at someone like you who does a very specialized like purpose stream. Like I don't play an instrument, so you might think, okay, why would you look at a drummer's stream and pick up anything? Because it's not something I'm doing. And there are certainly, I consider, some disadvantages for creators like myself where we don't have that one thing we're like all in on, and so I can't build a always set up like some of your setups, like the bullet time and things like that. I don't have a reason to have that always going, and so if I'm going to build something like that to play with, it's going to be a temporary thing that then I knock down to make room to actually shoot my videos and everything. Whereas to see someone who you literally built a box to put all of this in, to build all out for that purpose, you get so much better results and so many new ideas that comes from it, that it's just so fascinating to watch.
Yeah, I enjoy doing this stuff. It's my passion, and genuinely the fact that it helps other people, you know, I can do that. I have the space now to do the experimentation, and I enjoy people suggesting ideas to do that. So in the main aspect, it can just progress what's possible on Twitch, and not even on Twitch, just live streaming in general. It really is going to be the next form of medium that will overtake the world. Like, people already watch more live streaming than TV, so if I can contribute to that with the Atom software, or just what I'm doing crazy camera wise that inspires someone else to create something crazy, not even the same, then heck yeah, I'm a happy chap. So, people take things for granted, and again, this is the reason why I'm trying to bring these more advanced things from visual effects into live streaming, because if that sort of tech can be scaled down to be consumer, when you then, like I have done, take a lot of consumer stuff and occasionally some pro stuff, mainly on the audio side, and squish it together, you can go for a pro setup without having to spend the earth. You know, as you said, it's not all about gear. So yeah, it's fascinating, and I can't wait to do more of it myself. And
that's what I love to hear. Well, thank you so much to everyone watching at home, and if you're watching on YouTube, we have been chatting for about an hour and 40 minutes according to my record timer, which means the Nebula Extended Cut of this will be incredible, because I'm not posting an hour 40 long cut here on YouTube, but we talked about a lot, and you're not going to want to miss the over stuff over on Nebula. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe, go check out MrGregles' stream if somehow you haven't heard of it already. Go check it out. And I want to hear in the comments what your favorite elements from the streams are when you actually get to check them live. And otherwise, I'll see you all later. I've got some reconfiguring of my own stuff to do now, because ideas, always ideas. Never stay the same.
It's been a pleasure, man. Thank you very much.